And today we have a very interesting session on data. You know that the current world largely runs on how you assimilate data and how you interpret data. And to do this session, we have with us faculty from the Manipal Academy of FAMA Institute. It's Professor Dr. Seena Biju, and on behalf of ASU, Meena Fry and Mahe Fry, uh, we cordially invite you to begin the session, Seena. Before that, I just want to introduce Seena. She is the Dean at the School of Management and Business at the Manipal International University, which is located in Nilai, that is near Kuala Lumpur. So her expertise basically is in quality management, probability and statistics, operations research, research methods, and quantitative techniques. Her PhD was on the Six Sigma strategy in quality metrics of services in academic institutions. And prior to this, she was working in the Manipal Dubai campus. And she has conducted a number of workshops and has good publications in international journals, specifically in the areas that I had mentioned to you. So she is one of the lead faculty at the MAHE-MENA Institute on project management, and it's a pleasure to invite you here. And I can see one of my mentors. It is so wonderful to see her actually. Paige Murahan. I don't know how you your picture popped up here. Welcome, Paige. So Paige is one of the senior most faculty at the FAMA Institute, Philadelphia. In fact, one of the founders of the FAMA Institute at Philadelphia. So it was a pleasant surprise seeing you. You just popped up there. So among all others, may I, welcome each one of you for this very interesting session. I would request you all to keep your microphones muted, and video of course not required, so that you can hear Seena well. And with that brief introduction and welcome, may I now hand over to Professor Seena Biju.
Just before handing over to Professor Seena, Siraj, I really want to welcome Professor Seena here with us today. I know Siraj did the welcome on my behalf, but it's a long time no see. Happy to see you with us, and we're really looking forward to having you and to listening to all your wisdom today. And I just want to second Siraj's welcome to Paige. We're so happy to see you, Paige, always. So God bless you and thank you for coming today. Go ahead, Professor Seena.
Thank you, Sama. Go ahead, Seena.
Thank you so much, Dr. Siraj. Thank you, Dr. Samar. And a very warm good evening, good afternoon, and good morning to everyone across the globe. I'm Seena here, and I'm speaking to you from Malaysia. Very happy to be back with the family again. We're looking forward to meeting up as soon as possible. We're just hoping that this pandemic will let us all meet up. Now, on that note, I would like to disagree a little bit with Dr. Siraj. He's kind of raised your expectations quite a lot about this session, going to be very interesting. And I am hoping that I will stand up to his expectations and the expectations of the entire team. Well, as the word data suggests, it is something that most of us do not like because we are kind of intimidated by it. Numbers are terrifying and we really don't like the look of it. But I am here to represent the world of numbers to you. And I'd like you to know that all we need to do is hold on to the data and it will speak to us in a language that we will understand. So before I proceed, I would like to thank all our previous speakers, Dr. Hasnain, Dr. Samar, Dr. Hani, Dr. Gilbert. I think they've done wonderful as far as their presentations is concerned, and I'm hoping that I'll be able to measure up to what they have delivered. What I'm going to be talking to you today and what we are going to be taking away is very different from what we have been doing in the last 4 sessions. The last 4 sessions were essentially on teaching and learning and much to do with medical science and patient care. I'm also going to take you through some bit of it, but I would request all of you to sit back, enjoy the storytelling, and let the data speak for itself. Okay, on that note, I have posted a Google form link in the chat box. I would request everybody to please click on that link and take the survey whenever you find time. It'll take you less than a minute to go through it, because I'm going to demonstrate through you what volume, variety, and veracity of data actually is. While we are at it, please feel free to type out your doubts or your questions in the chat bar, and we do have Dr. Siraj and Dr. Samar who will be taking care of that, and I think I will be given an option to stop sometime in between, and happy to take the questions. All right, so on that note, what does data really mean to most of us? Is it numbers? Is it information? Is it the magnitude? Is it the speed? We're just going to look at some of these words. We're going to look at some stories, and we're going to see what spins around data and how data speaks to us. Okay, so this is what I told you. Just take that poll and you will also see how data looks there. So I'm going to ask you, and you can start thinking, what is big about data? What do you think is big about data? And usually when we say big data, we think it's about the magnitude and the amount of data that we have to look at. Well, you're right. You are right. It is about the magnitude of the data. But there are other dimensions also. There are actually 4 dimensions, and I'm going to address 3 of them, or I'm going to introduce you to 3 of them. So let's look at what data looks like in the real world. Today, with the kind of exposure we have to technology, with the kind of exposure we have to this big platform called the internet, data comes to us across 4 V's. And in today's storytelling, we are going to be looking at 3 of the V's. Data comes to us at different scales, from tiny bits of information to clouds full of information. And that is what we call the volume. And if you have already started looking at the questionnaire that I've shared with you, you will see that the variety of the questions, or the way in which the responses can come to you, it can be structured, it can be unstructured. So there is a variety aspect to data. We've always misunderstood data to be numbers. Trust me, there is an element of variety in the numbers, but there is also a variety that comes to you which are non-numerical. And those of you who are into social research, or even in your own medical researches, you would have seen that there is a lot of information that comes to you that are not numerical in nature, that are not necessarily quantitative in nature. And when it is not quantitative in nature, then it takes you to the next level as to how do you structure this data? How do you analyze it? How do you feel the pulse of this data? How do you know that this is what the data is telling me? How are you going to categorize them? We also are faced with another problem in today's world, the speed at which data is hitting us. And I don't have to take you any way back, except that in the last 4 months, the way data has been hitting us, we have had more volumes and volumes of data coming. Not just that, we have had data coming to us at a very high speed. And of course, then you are stuck with the uncertainty that comes with the data. And that is what we call veracity. And I'm going to take you through each of this in a little more detail. But I'm sure by now you would have got a hint of what we are talking about. The volume of it, the variety of it, the velocity of it, and the veracity of it. And I'm not going to be touching too much on the velocity aspect today, but yes, I will be talking to you a little bit about volume, a little bit of variety, and a little bit of veracity. And we'll take a small peekaboo into how do we handle this data. And I'll leave you with that, because today, I don't think we will be able to go into how to analyze data. We won't do that. But we will come to terms with what data is, and we will try and understand and have a good introduction with these aspects or these characteristics of data. Okay. So how does data look in the world of healthcare? Why do health analysts need data, and why are we banking on big data? Because that is the primary focus. We need data so that we can come to a conclusion, and we can't have small little bits of data. We need big data for that. And of course, what you see here on the screen is how information is passed on, how there's a lot of data mining, and how it comes from different directions. It is all put into a bucket, and how that data is used by different analysts, and how it's then processed and sent back. And what are the different aspects of healthcare that are actually addressed when we have data with us, right? If you look at this diagram, there is a lot in here, from just about what a physician can do, to what the pharmacy guy can give you, to what the sales and marketing people do as far as healthcare is concerned, how information is used by analysts, what is the meaning of medical management, and how does that connect to healthcare data. And we may have just looked at the little data that we have probably in our respective clinics or even our hospitals. But if you were talking about something as big as the pandemic we are going through, how is the world going to use this? How are the decision makers of the world going to use this? How are they able to tell us one morning that, hey, you got to wear a mask, and the other day they say, don't wear a mask? And who are the people who are actually working on this kind of data and coming back to us and saying, this is a good thing to do and this is not the right thing to do? And how are they actually able to evaluate and say this, if this pandemic continues, this is how long we are going to be, and this is the longevity of life? And how is it that little children are going to be affected or not affected? How is it that senior members in the family may be affected or may not be affected? It's fantastic to know that how data can be a part of our story, and how it actually validates much of what we are deciding. And therefore, whenever you provide data to each of your decisions, you know for a matter of fact, as decision makers as you've been, that your decisions look more authentic when you have data with you. Like I said, patient care or patient data with healthcare analysts will give you certain amount of clinical insights, and that is what will lead you to targeted action. I've still not touched the aspects of data. I've not still looked at variety or veracity and the volume of data. But you can see for yourself that as we are talking about patient data, the moment I say patient data, a zillion come to your mind. A zillion cases come to your mind. And then we are looking at all sorts of numbers there. And then we're also now today, in today's scenario, we are also looking at the speed at which these numbers are being fed. And we're also wondering if much of this data that is coming to us, is it true? Is it for real? We'd like to see that. And if you have the time and the patience to actually structure your data, what is real, then you probably have data analytics that will come into picture, which will kind of give it a meaning. And then with your clinician's insight, you are on your way to what we call an educated decision-making process. Well, a little deviation from your regular stream of work. Let's look at what it looks like in the world of consumer. We are all consumers in some way or the other. And I am not a physician myself, and may I tell you that I'm not a physician myself. So therefore, some of the stories that I'm going to tell you are not going to be from the medical background. Now look at this information that we have here. How do suppliers, how do producers, how do manufacturers, how do retailers use data? If you are in charge of a pharmacy store, if you're in charge of somebody who's catering to a consumer group, how are you going to use the data? If you are a marketeer, how are you going to use the data? So here is another story that I have to tell you about. So if you're a marketeer, what kind of information do you have? And do you think that customers' data is not being abused or misused by the marketeers? Are they worried about how their data is being used? What about, so this is the data that was collected for consumer privacy. That was the theme of this study. And this data actually refers to how the 3 countries are responded to different questions. But this whole data set is going to be of so much use if given to a consumer, if given to a producer. We always sign an agreement with all our manufacturers and our producers saying, yes, you can use whatever data you want, even when you have to open as simple as an email address. You know, you want to sign up for a new email ID. There is that little hint that comes to you saying, can we use your data? And subconsciously or unconsciously, if I may say, we tend to say yes. And sooner or later, you become a part or a statistic on what we call a consumer database. And the amount of information, if I'm not too far away, the amount of information Facebook has about you is far, far more than what a relative has about you. The kind of tracking they do, the kind of information they have, it may not be pretty personal, may not be direct, but they do have data in big chunks. And that is why when you log on to buying something on Amazon, you also have somebody who comes up there and says, you know, this is the thing that you bought last time. Would you want to buy this? Would you want to buy product A, product B, product C? And somewhere your privacy seems violated there. But keeping that aside, here is big data in play. How does big data behave in economics? How do countries, how do economies use big data? How do they decide which company do they have to trade in? What sector should they invest their money in? Which are the countries that they should be working on as far as export is concerned? What countries should be allowed into their own economy as far as investments are concerned? How are the stocks behaving? How are the consumers behaving as far as stocks are concerned? What is the next big market our consumers will be interested in investing? What should the government do as far as a policy change is concerned? Here is where big data comes into the picture. Maybe 1 year of data is not sufficient for us. We would like to see how our generations have been behaving. And so therefore we might need 5-year data. We might need monthly data for the last 5 years. We may need weekly data for the last 5 years. We may need daily data for the last 5 years. And we would like to see how our economies are changing. We would like to see how aspects such as energy or trade or infrastructure, or for that matter, talent. You know, there was a time when they said there was something called a brain drain. There were people traveling from one country to the other, and some developing countries were worried that some of their best intelligent citizens were actually moving abroad and going away, and we were losing out on talent. And so what should a company do, or what should an economy do to maintain that talent in the country? What do we do with that kind of information? How does an economy use that information? Look at the vastness of the data. Look at the magnitude of data that we are looking at. All this are what we call game changers. Now, big data is everywhere. I just gave you 2 or 3 examples. Take a very simple aspect like a movie. If you want to recommend a movie, if you're on Netflix or if you're on Amazon Prime, you'll agree with me. The moment you watch a type of movie or a genre of movie, you will have the Netflixes of the world actually recommending some movies to you. And there we have what we call artificial intelligence. There's a lot of data mining happening out there. There is a machine that is observing your watching patterns and suggesting to you what you should probably watch, because they've already discovered what is it that you like as far as movies are concerned. So you are somebody who likes spooky movies, or you're somebody who likes thriller movies, and you will see that those recommendations will keep coming to you. Yeah, you have something called customer segmentation that happens on your online shopping. The next time you're on, you know, I have my florist who keeps telling me, last year, same time, you had sent flowers to your friend or to your daughter or to your parents. Don't miss it out. Why don't you do it again? So there is an algorithm written there, and it reaches out to you. And somehow, as impulsive as we are, oh, there we are sending out flowers, even though we don't want to. Or maybe you're glad that the florist reminded you. Yeah, how is it that you behaved the last time you went ahead and bought a certain product? And what is it that a company would like to do? So there is a whole lot of sentiment analysis data that is available there. More often than not, you would have noticed even a simple Aditya Birla Group more, or a little store beside you does have a feedback taken immediately. And that goes a long way in deciding how that retail store must change the touch and feel of the store. Yeah, if you're on an app, an Uber app, if you're on an Ola app, you do see that after every drive or every ride that you've taken, there is a feedback asked from you. And based on your feedback, there is a message that goes into the company. So here you are, there is big data everywhere. Like I have down here in Malaysia, we have an app called the Grab, which is very similar to your Uber. And trust me, every Saturday and Sunday, I mean, now it's COVID season, so that is why that's not happening. But Saturdays or Sundays are the days when I choose to go to church. And every Saturday at about 4:30 or 5 o'clock, I have a pop-up that comes on my screen saying, do you want to go to church today? And even before I can book a cab, the message, the destination is already in there. Now, where is all this information coming from? So much of machine learning, so much of artificial intelligence in the plane. That's big data for us. There is a machine that is actually processing our behavior, and it's collecting all that data. And that data is coming back to us. Now, if you are in the chair of a decision maker, how would you like to use this data? If you are the owner of Netflix, or if you are working for Uber in the R&D section, how would you like to use this data? And how quickly is this data coming? Do you even have the time to synthesize that data? Yeah, or is it so overwhelming? The reality is, yes, it is overwhelming, but there is nothing to be afraid of, because all you need to do is get the tools in place and see how best you can put this data to use. And with the kind of tools that are available in today's market, we really don't have to worry about it. What we have to do is look deep into that and see how we can make sense of it. But before we come to any conclusion, like with every other decision you take in life, even with data, you got to step one step back and make sure that you have the right data with you, and that your data is free of every bit of ambiguity. And that's how you take the correct data forward, and then your decision is based on that. So some more graphs to show you how numbers are everywhere, how they can be used. And this is what we call a dashboard, how you can actually put them all in one frame and look at it both individually and holistically. This is something that was a prediction as far as tourism was concerned by the Pacific Asia Travel Association a few months back. Well, today it doesn't seem like the same thing. A few months back, it was predicted that there will be so many international visit arrivals into these countries. This was somewhere in the middle of 2019. It won't make any sense right now because COVID has changed everything. And we are into a different ball game as far as data is concerned. Look at how. So this was a date. This was a survey that was done in I think in March 2020 about how social lives which are digitalized under MCO and how everything is now changing. Yeah, use of social media. How what used to be and whether it has increased or decreased or no change. So here was a data that was collected among thousands of adults, all above the age of 18 in Malaysia. This is a data from Malaysia alone. As you can see how things have changed. Use of social media, 79% of them said we are now more into social media. So that's a hint now to all the social media platforms to look at whether they should be catering to a country like Malaysia at a faster network or not, at a faster bandwidth, at a faster speed. How many of them follow news? The use of news has increased 77%. But I'd like you to look at the last bar. Look at how economy has been hit. 22% of them have now said, only 22% of them have actually gone ahead with their investments. 30% of them said, hey, as compared to what we were doing a month ago, today we are less into investment. Today we are more into buying food, having food delivered at home, but not as much as it used to be. We are 47% of them said we are spending more time watching movies these days. Yeah, now this is data for you. This is how COVID has affected, and I'm just showing you how data is coming to us and how we can actually use this data. Now this data can be actually used to understand how the behavior of citizens are in a certain country and how citizens are adapting to the new situation. And probably the economies can use this to take a call on what to do in the next few months. This is another information from the health industry. Tourism, travel and airlines, and how the different companies are actually hit, and what is the probability of the impact in 2020 from low to high. As you can see, more people-based companies are impacted. I'm just showing you different stories, and all these stories are based on data and how analysis was done using big data. and how we are actually looking at several aspects of data, not just one or two factors. We're looking at so many aspects, and we're looking at how these things actually hit us every day and how we have to get used to it. I'm going to show you something very interesting. I don't know how many of you know about it, and I'm just going to go out of this presentation for a moment and show you something on this called Google Trends. Bear with me here. Google Trends is a very, very interesting website. It's a part of Google applications. What you can actually do here is it will give you the trending, the different trends in let's say, let me start off with how much of WebEx is being used. Now you can see here, in the United States alone, for the past 12 months, since May 2019 to April 2020, how has the use of WebEx gone up? You see, this is one trend. Now suppose I want it for any other country. So I can choose worldwide. The graph looks different. I can use, let's say, for a company, for a country like Egypt. How has WebEx been there? You see this? Google Trend is very, very interesting. Suppose I want to compare the use of WebEx with Zoom in Egypt. So you can see for yourself that Zoom, which is indicated by the red graph, is more of utility or more used than WebEx here. Let's say I'm not interested in the past 12 months. I just want it for the last 3 months. All you do is change it, and here you have weekly data with you. It's very interesting how you can, if you want it for across the world, this is how the data looks like. Let's say I want to add one more comparison. I will say Microsoft Teams. Here you are. You have 3 graphs. Clearly you can see across the world, Zoom has been used most often as compared to Microsoft Teams and WebEx. Now, if you are somebody who is deciding to start up one more platform to provide interaction, this data can be of much use to you. Now, do you want day-wise data? Do you want monthly data? Do you want hourly data? If you want it for the last 4 hours, how has it been across the world? There you go. Google Trends is very, very effective. Scroll down. I would recommend all of you to spend some time going through Google Trends. It gives you insights into almost everything. It's very interesting to read this. You scroll down and it will give you across the world how it is. And here you have country-wise the interest for WebEx, the interest for Zoom, the interest for Microsoft. You can have it as bar charts. As you can see that these diagrams actually give you better insights into what you want to really compare. Google Trends is a very, very useful tool. You may spend some time trying to understand if you're looking at the larger picture. I'm going back to my PowerPoint now. So I just wanted to introduce Google Trends to you. Having said that, let me now take you through data and its form. So now we are going to look at the 3 dimensions. Here. One look at this picture. This talks about velocity. In 60 seconds, look at the way, or the magnitude in which digital platforms have been interacting and growing. What used to be about 79,000 posts on a Facebook platform in a minute, today or in 2014, it was 3.3 million. I am sure this has become 100-fold now. What used to be just about 25 hours, 25 plus hours of YouTube videos, today in 2014, it has gone up to 120 hours of videos uploaded. WhatsApp, WordPress, this is just about what happens online every minute. It's a comparative graph for 3 years, 2012, 2013, and 2014. That's the speed of data. That also talks about volume of data, as you can see. Now, this is a fantastic insight if you are somebody who's trying to understand the dimensions, or if you're trying to understand activities on social media. And if you can actually connect this to some psychological study, to mental depression, to how motivated people can remain, given that this is the speed at which individuals are interacting with each other. So let me take you through the 3 V's. Let me show you some graphs here, and I'm going to take some from the current situation and few from the others. This is a cartodiagram, or cartograph as it is called, with bubbles indicating the magnitude of coronavirus situation, number of cases confirmed. This is as on April 7th. This is the impact of public transit usage in South America and the effect of that from January 15th to March 19th. Imagine how much of data was collected and how it was all mapped to understand how data is moving. This is another diagram by the WHO that shows the number of confirmed cases across countries. And a highlighted one here just to show you how China is. I am talking about the volume of data. How does volume of data look like in the healthcare sector? If we go by the predictions today, the healthcare sector will be holding close to 175 zettabytes of data in the next 5 years. That's humongous. There is going to be an 800-fold growth rate in the current database that you are seeing right now. 18% of the GDP alone in US alone, which is worth about 3.4 trillion, comes from the healthcare sector. And how are most of you who are decision makers in the healthcare sector going to use this data? You are going to use this for improvement in health management, in patient engagement, in patient care, and in diagnostics. This was some of the news that I've been reading, and I thought I should take a snapshot of all of this and, give it as and just show it to you. Some of the news that I have come across, and I'm sure most of you also read some of these news. I've just borrowed some snapshots across the various newspapers and websites. Look at all these news. 80% of Americans say they saw fake coronavirus news in the early days. Yes. Maximum COVID-19 related fact checks in April alone. So much of data that was given to us, and most of it without evidence, some of it just myths. Just within a week, as far as coronavirus was identified, we had a lot of messages that came to us, from where. It came to us saying, you must have garlic, you must have hot water, you must have lime. We knew some bit of it, we didn't know some bit of it. There was partial truth in most of them. I am talking about the next dimension of data, and that is called veracity. Veracity is about the truthfulness of data. And you know that when data comes to you in large volumes, you're always wondering if all of this is true. If not, how much of it is true? Data has too many hedges, and there is a term that most of us are aware of. There is something called volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. Data also has these edges. Just like our world, data also is facing a lot of VUCA situations. Today we are in a perfect VUCA situation when it comes to a lot of things, including our travel. Some of us are also grappling with whether we will have our jobs or not. And in a moment, I will take you to that. Data too has many edges. Therefore, veracity of data becomes very, very important, and one cannot overlook it. You know who the culprit is. Most often than not, it comes to us from here. The social media, because there is where data is hardly authenticated. There is where data can be posted by anybody. And that is why we would like to see whether the basis from where we are collecting the data, is that valid or not? Veracity of data essentially refers to data that is influenced by external factors, biased data, incomplete data, data that has been compromised. Yeah, some bit of information is given to us, some bit of information is not given to us. Essentially, veracity of data refers to the risk data carries with itself. And the more you work with data, the more comfortable you will be. You're all physicians, you know, and I'm always amused by the fact that as physicians, some of you are so smart in just feeling our pulse and telling us if everything is okay. You are the data analysts of medical data. You just look in the eye and say, okay, there's something not right about you. Analysts work like that. Data analysts look at the pulse of the data, and then they know there's something not right about this data. The look and feel of the data doesn't seem okay. That's what I mean by veracity of data. That is what veracity of data means. Or data that you cannot track back. You can't really fall back and say whether it was correctly collected, rightly collected, properly collected. You don't know the origin of their data. Veracity becomes important. Then comes variety. If you have taken that survey that I just gave you, and in a while I will show you the results of that survey, there has been a humongous amount of paradigm shifts in our worlds in the last 1 year. I'm sorry, in the last 1 month. We have changed the way we are even looking at our lives now. Even more, the way data has been coming to us, the forms in which data come to us is amazing. And it's also very beautiful sometimes, because the moment you see a pattern in it, it's wonderful to see that. And that's what I've been showing you. I've been showing you patterns. Let me show you different varieties of data that I've been reading about as someone who's interested in big data analytics. Let's look at some stories. I'm taking these stories from the market. Supply chain disrupted as far as Nike is concerned. Starbucks had to shut down more than 3,000 stores in the ASEAN regions. In China alone, there has been quite a number. Apple is looking for alternate suppliers, given that the ASEAN countries may now not have, much of takers. 28% of the companies are looking at long-term negative impacts. 65% of the companies actually said there will be a short-term impact. How is the market behaving? And all this information is coming to us in different forms. The buying behavior of people have changed. I remember, for a matter of fact, when the lockdown was first announced here in Malaysia, it was scary. We started our lockdown on the 18th of March 2020. And trust me, between 15th of March to 18th of March, or 17th of March, the queues in the shopping malls were serpentine, extremely lengthy. And we had never in our wildest dreams thought that could be one of our shopping experiences. Some of the shelves were literally empty. There was nothing in those shelves. Suddenly there is a change in the buying behavior. Now that's one kind of data coming to us. Not just numbers, behavior, irritated people standing in the queues, people buying things suddenly, not even believing, believing that they might need it. And some of us even stocked up things which we would have never bought, in the regular scheme of affairs. And data has shown us that 65% of stock up of only food items. But actually older people did not do that. It was the younger ones who did it. That was another interesting behavior. It was the younger ones who actually went ahead and did a lot of stocking up. How was big data behaving in education? Now, in the world of education, how is big data first of all going to help us? And then I'm going to show you how big data looks in the world in the context of coronavirus or COVID. In the world of education, big data is used for teaching and pedagogical collaborations. It is used for student performance. We would like to see how many students, student transition is a huge thing. Student mobility is a huge thing. How do students decide that they should be in your country for their higher studies? How do you know that students from your country are going to leave yours and go to another country for higher studies? How is the world of big data going to help educators figure out what is their strength going to be in the next 10 years? Are you deciding to set up a bigger platform as far as education is concerned? Do you have a market for that? How is education going to look in the next 5 years? Are we looking at student mobility? Are we looking at student transition? Are we prepared for learning practices? You know that today we have moved from a classroom mode to an online mode. How many of us were really prepared for it? I'm going to show you what big data says on that note. How do we add value using the data in the world of education? Now, before I go to that, I'm just now going to escape from this PowerPoint and I'm going to take a look at how your survey looks, and then I'm going to come back to the PowerPoint. Let me take you to the survey. We've got about 22 responses. Thank you for taking part in it. And let's look at how your survey looks like. Which of the following do you think has positively affected you in the last 3 to 4 months? It's very interesting to see that it's been tough for many people as far as work, family, physical health, and mental health is concerned. But I'm very happy to see that many of us have said that, hey, we have been spending more time with family now. We've been taking care of our health now. Most people have said that. Even in terms of mental health, most people have said, hey, not bad at all. Yeah. Work, most of us were not prepared for it. So there has been an almost uniform response to that. 4 factors were given and work seemed to be uniform in terms of difficulty, but somehow we've all started looking at our family once again. Where do we get our news from? Mostly we said it is through other platforms, but there are many of us who said that yes, we do have WhatsApp also, and we do have social media. And when I do receive messages from social media, here I'm talking about, so this slide, this particular graph I'm talking about is about the variety or the sources. Now I'm talking about veracity. Yeah, look at what percentage of people said that it is mostly true. Just 1% out of the 22 or the 23. Many of them said 50% of it may be true. 50% of it, some bit of it, yes. But some bit of it, no. But look at another 43% of them have said 20% is only true. It's a good try. People are sending me all this information, but I'm not going to fall for it. The veracity of data. And if you are somebody who's working on the truth in data while on social media, maybe this might be of some help to you. Of course, we are having very small number as far as the survey is concerned, but if done in a better manner, you can actually have these responses. The responses are flowing in now. As you can see, the graphs are changing. Yeah. Which of the following is most representative of you when you go grocery shopping? I just try to address a few aspects. Which of it is most representative of you? Many of you have said this is not the time for indulgence, so just buy whatever is necessary. Yeah, but some of you have been a little scared. They said, hey, I must stock up grocery for at least for the next 6 months. Yeah, so you see how people are buying differently. I'm talking of variety here, how behavior is different. How has stock market behaved? And how are you in terms of stock markets? I just try to divert your attention from consumer behavior to probably investments. The speed at which data arrives at you. Now this is fantastic. 46% of you have told us that every 5 to 15 minutes I get new data. Now, what do you do? What do you do when you get that kind of data? It's not even going to give you time to synthesize it. Well, the idea is not to scare you, but the idea is for you to get familiar with the speed at which data is coming to you. Get comfortable, because data is not meant to scare you. Data is meant to actually empower you, because that's going to take you forward as far as decision is concerned. Yes? Now, you best understand COVID information. It is fantastic to see that most of us rely only on authentic data from journals and research articles. Word of mouth, very less. Tabular reports, it's probably because you can't read too much into it. And there is a little bit of an ambiguity there. But you know, journals, infographics, research articles, this come to you holistically. And therefore you rely mostly on that. 55% of you said we are happy, we relate and we better understand data when it comes to us from authentic sources. I'm talking about veracity here. This is about the speed at which data is coming to you, volume. This is about velocity. This graph is about veracity again. This is about variety. From where is it coming? All right. Thank you so much for participating in that survey. I'm going to go back to my slideshow. And so why is it important for us to understand the 3 V's? Because 1, veracity helps you to filter ambiguity. Channelizing information becomes important, and variety will help you to do that. And volume, because you are now not going to be looking at libraries. You're not going to be looking at textbooks. You're hardly going to be looking at notebooks. You're going to look at the cloud. Your data is up there, and you will be dealing with clouds sooner or later, which you are already. Now, when it comes to analyzing data, I'm going to show you this in 2 dimensions, across difficulty and value, right? When you are inspecting into what happened, then you are using what we call descriptive analytics. Descriptive analytics add moderate value to data. It just gives you information in hindsight, where you take data from what happened and then you describe it. All right. Therefore, there's only so much value that you can give or use from what happened then. The next step that you would do, or you would take as far as data is concerned, is to get into the diagnostic frame. That is, you dig a little deeper. Now you play the role of a pathologist as to check why did it happen. You get into investigating. Yeah, you diagnose the data. Why did this happen? Why is there an association? Why is there a pattern? Why is there a cluster? Why is it that these variables are behaving in a certain manner? So you get into diagnostics. All these need statistical tools, but that's for another day for us to discuss. But while you get into the diagnostic analytics, the value of the data now that you have increases a little more. Of course, the difficulty also increases a little more. Then comes your next level, where you will use this information for prediction. As in, if data continues to go this way, if this is the trend that data is going to showcase, then what will happen? Yes, we are talking about predictive analytics. And that is where all your R&D team will come into the picture. You are going to analyze for insights, and you're going to use that to talk about what will happen. Of course, the difficulty level is going to be higher as far as analysis is concerned, but look at what is going to happen to the value. You're going to add value to your data. And yes, then comes your prescriptive. That is, you have a target in place now. You make use of your descriptive, your diagnostic, and your predictive analytics reports, and use that to prescribe for what will happen in the coming days. What are we doing here? We are looking at forecasting. We are looking at how we can use whatever data we have in putting it to use for something that is desirable. So we are looking at optimizing the value of our data so as to forecast. Yeah. So this is essentially how you are going to work with data. Are there tools specifically for this? Yes, there are. Are we going to study them today? No, we don't have to, but it's good to know that these tools exist. I will show you a little bit on descriptive, and that too will only stick to visuals. Okay. How is the pharmaceutical company? So let me relate it to your industry. How is the pharmaceutical company using data to change business? Predictive models, clinical trials, sales and marketing, digital apps. All of us know that we all have now an app. Why the Indian government has now launched, if I'm getting the word right, it's called Arogya Setu, a health app. We all know of health apps that help us. All of us who have a phone do have a health app that we can use that will tell us how many steps we are taking forward. And if your name and number is connected to a pharmaceutical company, the company will actually tell you how you can actually go ahead as far as your health is concerned. Before I go to the next slide, I'd like to show you something very, very interesting. And I really love this slide, this video. So bear with me here. I'm going to show you a video by Hans Roslings and how he has used digitization to talk about world health across 200 countries. I hope you can see the video that I'm showing you here.
Dr. Seena, you're aware that there is no sound to the video?
There's no sound for the video?
Yes, sound never works on on
so
these
shall I
calls.
skip this and I will post this link on the chat bar?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, I shall do. Okay.
Yeah, because sound will not be heard, actually, unless you keep another source open near the speaker.
Okay, all right, fine, no problem. So I'm going to just skip this. What I'm going to do is I'm posting the link on the chat bar. Okay, for all of you to see it a little later. All right, so let's continue with the slides. So I'm going to show you some. So that's something that's very interesting, and I'd recommend all of you to go through that video once we are done with today's webinar. So I'm going to take you through some data visualization that has been done in the domains of education. And while I'm doing that, I'm also going to tell you how COVID has actually impacted global education. I'm not telling you anything new. Trust me, this is information that you already know. But it's interesting to see how this information is actually represented and how it is showcased and illustrated. And maybe a food for thought for all of us as educators, where all of us have been a little busy in jumping to the online platform, but not realizing how school closures has actually impacted so many billions of learners across the world. In the last 2 months, 1.38 schools have closed. And these, when I say, we are talking about pre-primary, primary, lower secondary, and upper secondary alone. This is what the UNESCO report says. About 1.75 billion learners have been impacted due to these schools. All of us, we know, we're a little smart enough to kind of learn how to use the internet and immediately jump from the classroom to the online platforms. 60% of the teachers have no prior experience on online delivery. This is what the world of big data in the education tells us. Some thought for all of us to take home while I'm demonstrating to you how big data is showcasing. What decisions are going to be taken using this kind of data? Well, the user of this data will be able to do that. Well, this is also a time for many of us to rethink everything, including education. Where did we assume most of our students do have a good connectivity? Why did we assume that most of our students have a laptop for themselves? Actually, coronavirus has changed the way millions of students are being educated across the globe, not all of them have much of it. Given the digital divide, now there is also going to be a huge divide between the haves and the have-nots as far as education is concerned. Will we still be able to stick to the norm, education for all? Here is some data for you to ponder, and this I have borrowed from some big data analysis that was done by different researchers. This is the data about percentage students in household no 1.5 million homeless students across US alone. Schools are finding it difficult to address remote learning, especially for students with disability. Data also tells 70% of the teachers are now actually have a tendency to assign homework that needs internet. Somewhere we overlooked all that because we didn't realize this was going to be a problem at all. Here is where I'm giving you some insights into what big data talks about as far as education is. Where we are. First of all, the education fraternity was not ready for this gigantic transition. About 1.54 billion children and youth have been impacted. I'm giving you news. News probably you already know. I'm substantiating it with numbers, but I also want you to look at the volume and I want you to look at the variety. The veracity, of course, to a certain extent has been taken care of because the data has been borrowed from valid, authentic sources. 9 billion children lack internet access at home for online learning. It also means that 42% of our children are in homes without internet. 11 million children are having to share a device. That means there's just one computer in the house, and if there is a family of 4 children, it's kind of difficult for all of them to be in their online classes at the same time. For many of us and many of our families, I think a laptop for a long time has been a luxury. This is some data as far as education is concerned. And I'm just giving you some food for thought, but I'm backing it up with data. And look out there and you will find a lot of data. Maybe you can just and go ahead with developing or spinning a story around it. Perceived impact on education. Data tells us there can be a short-term impact and there can be long-term impact. About 2,000 decision makers. This is by an agency that runs that takes care of mobility of students and travel of students between countries. And they have said in short term how it's going to be and long term how the data is going to be affected. I'm not giving you any numbers here. I'm just illustrating it to you using graphs. How different countries think that education is going to be impacted. Descriptive data analytics. There are many tools. Please don't be too bothered about it. When we conduct statistics classes and when we have statistics webinars, maybe we will be introducing ourselves to some of them. You may have heard some of these words. Some of these words may be familiar. Let's leave it at that. But these are all tools that I think we can be aware of and that we need to know that it exists. Okay, so some of these predictions is what you already knew about. And here is what it is going to be by the end of 2021. If you're in the world of education, some of these are going to happen. There is going to be an increased network traffic. There is going to be higher business analytics. All this again specific to education alone. It may be also common to other domains, but you will find a similarity in health sciences. You will find a similarity in patient care. You will find a similarity in market studies. You will find a similarity in the domains of education. Yes, there is going to be a major disruption in the education landscape. 40% of many of the people who have been spoken to actually expect a decrease in enrollments. Most of the schools feel that there is going to be a decrease in enrollments and consumer demand. There will be higher virtual offerings. That's going to be the new normal. The question therefore is, are we ready for this kind of a surge demand? Are we ready for a reduction in staffing as far as schools, universities, and institutes of higher education are concerned? And what are we talking about? We are talking about how we can use data to either go ahead with what is going to happen or to mitigate certain trouble. So what data do you have and how do you propose to use it is the question that I'm going to leave you with. Remember, In God we trust. Everybody else must bring data. And also remember that if you look at data really, really well, it will begin to confess. On that note, thank you very much for that patient hearing. Dr. Siraj and Dr. Samar, on to you.
Thank you, Dr. Seena, for that excellent presentation. As data scientists often remind us, the goal is to turn data into information, right?
Absolutely.
And information, obviously, to deliverables that you have, or information into insight, rather. So happy to listen to you provide those vital statistics in terms of, because from this community, there are people who work on this specific data, but most of us just flip through the superficial areas. We are now open for questions. Samar, you have any comments to make, or if there are questions in chat box, we take, or you are free to unmute yourself, identify yourself, and ask questions to Professor Seena.
Before any questions are asked, with my limited knowledge, I will try to answer as much possible. If I am unable to answer any of your questions, please feel free to pass it on to me. I will personally answer them through email or through the chat box that happens in the MSTT. Yes.
Hello, Dr. Seena. I'm Selvam here.
Hi, Selvam.
I'm affiliated with Physiotherapy Department, Manipal College of Health Professions, MAHE.
Okay.
So thank you for the wonderful session on the big data analytics. Only thing, the question I wanted to know is about the veracity of the data. So people, we all feed volume as well as the variety to the data.
Correct.
Is there a point of contact, or how to find the veracity of the data? Because to use this information,
Yes.
we need to need the truthfulness of that data.
Absolutely.
So without which we cannot use that data properly.
Absolutely.
So is there a means of verifying this data, the truthfulness of this data?
Well,
independent body which maintains this data.
Well, it depends on what data you're collecting, Selva. Essentially, what happens is you will have to look at from where you're drawing the data. If it is by, see, for example, we all know that any data that is posted on social media cannot be trusted 100%. But if you dig a little deeper and if your searching techniques are right, you might reach the database where that data is actually stored. If you know who the author is, if you know who has created the data, you can actually write to them. They will be happy to tell you whether the data is authentic or not. I'm not really sure. I'm personally not aware of any agency that verifies the authenticity of the data, but I should be able to look into that and let you know about it. Maybe I can look into it. That's a very interesting question that you have asked. I will try and see, I will read about it and I will let you know if there is any agency that actually verifies the authenticity of the data. I'm sure it should be there.
Thank you so much.
Sure it should. Yes.
There is a question from Aparna Tripathi from Manipal. What are the ethical issues while using the openly available data, like in Google Trends? Are there any ethical issues?
Whatever is available on Google Trends, you must make sure that they are not copyrighted. If you're using any copyrighted data, then you might want to write to the source and they'll be actually happy to give you the data either for free or for a premium. So you might want to probably look into that. So if the data is copyrighted, if the data is patented, just like any other finding, one cannot use it. If it is an open source data, you can actually use it. Google Trends, I think, uses open source data. So more than happy to use it because it's out there. But if data says, if it comes with that tag saying copyrighted, then you must use that. You may reach out to the person or the agency that holds the data, and they'll be actually happy to share that with you. Just like how we do it in our research, some of the questionnaires that we use, we have to actually write to the authors who have created that, and they give us the permission to use their questionnaire in our research. But if it's already available in open source, not a pirated source, an open source, we might as well use it. Or we might use the citations as we usually do, and then use the data by giving them their due, recognition. And I think we can go ahead with it. Yes.
What are the challenges in data-driven decision making? Question from Purnima.
Hello, Purnima. The challenges, as I told you, data-driven decisions, it depends on who's looking at the data. All of us are looking at it from different lenses, right? So what is your research question? And have you correctly looked at your data from the perspective of your research question? Now, there will be two things. One is our assumption about what the data is telling us, and the other thing is that data is really telling us something. So that is why we always start our research in a very unbiased manner. One of the biggest challenges, and my own personal experiences, our own intuition about data. What are the challenges that data doesn't pose any challenge to us. Probably the volume of data is a challenge to us. Probably the variety of data is a challenge to us. But if we are sorting that out, then once data is in our control, as it is said, then there is no issue about taking it to a decision. Each of us at different levels of decision making use it differently. As a marketing executive, I may use it differently. As an academician, I will use the same data differently. As a decision maker, as a strategist, you may use it differently. As a healthcare analyst, you may use it differently. So it is about how data appeals to each of us. But otherwise, once data is in control, data is not very challenging. Analyzing the data may seem challenging depending on our own understanding and comprehension about the tools of the data that we use. Yeah? I hope I have answered your question to some extent.
There's a question which I think you have answered, that is about the veracity of the data. That's what Selvam asked, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm not, that was by Mona, so that question is answered. There's a question from Tara. Isn't data used to create propaganda that is harmful in many times? Shouldn't this be incorporated in our education to provide the right information?
Yes, you're absolutely right, Tara. I agree with you 100%. Data can be used in many ways that are not right. For example, and I don't have to go too far, all of us have been consumers all our lives. And this is one question that I ask in my statistics class always to talk about how data can be used. Has any of us seen an advertisement that is not happy? Never. All advertisements tell us that this product is the best thing that has happened to you. There you have data. Now, how much of it is true? When was the last time we used a face cream and we got the next job? But the cream advertisement always tells you that face creams are best for you, while we all agree that it's got nothing to do with our complexions. But on that note, having said that, yes, data can be used in a harmful manner. Data can be used, can be violated, data can be abused. There is a lot of scam in the industry, and that is all misrepresentation of data. Concealing data, showing only what your customers want to see and not showing them what we don't want them to see is also violating data. Yeah, yes, it does happen in more than one ways, and we all know about it. That is true.
So I think that's a very valid point from Tara, and which Seena has endorsed. I've seen that before leaving this meeting, Professor Paige Morahan, whom we were referring to, me and Summer, she has actually posted in the chat box the same thing. She says that, it should be systematically addressed in the education system from K-12, even including, education, and that is where it can make a difference. Professor Latika Mohan actually endorses, basically it's not a question, I think she says that there have been a number of research articles on COVID. Veracity of this thing is sometimes questionable, so expert opinion is required. Yeah, that's right. I think Seena will endorse that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So any other questions, or I will, if we have no questions, may I request Summer to wind up this session?
Okay, thank you so much, Professor Seena, for the amazing presentation. We're really looking forward to the recording as well, because many people actually reached out and asked for it. So probably we will get this ready ready very, very soon. And I really would like to thank all the participants of this session. Thank you for coming. Yep.
There is one hand up. Maybe we should take that because probably I've not seen it. Mohammed Shah, and
Okay,
just
go ahead.
wind up with that. Yeah. Go ahead, Mohammed Shah.
Prof. Haji, maybe you can unmute your mic and speak. Mohammed Shah Abdullah is a colleague of mine from the Manipal International University.
Okay. He needs to unmute his mic.
Yes, you need to unmute your mic, Prof. Haji. I suppose we've lost him.
Never mind. Okay, over to Sama for concluding. Go ahead, Sama.
Okay, perfect. So again, I'd like to thank Professor Seena for being with us today, and we're looking forward to the presentation, the recording, which has been a request for many people. And again, I want to second what Professor Seena started this session with. I'd like to thank all the presenters in this MAHE-MENA Alumni Global webinar series, starting from Professor Muhammad Hassanin to Muhammad Hani to later on Professor John Gilbert, and now having Professor Seena with us. That has been a joy. And I just want to remind you all that this is not the end of this series. We have the last presentation and the last session on our series that will be presented by our very own Siraj Muhammad. He's the director of the MAHE-MENA MAHE-FAMER Regional Institute, and it's going to be one of a kind, of course, because Siraj will be talking to us about his background and his expertise in building communities of practice and in faculty development programs, which will be the MPhilip experience, which is a very, very important one. So I just want all our Egyptian colleagues to be on that call. I know it will be useful for all of us. This will be held on the 30th of May, 4 p.m. Cairo local time, which is 7:30 p.m. in Indian time. So please do not miss it. I will be sending you another reminder 24 hours in advance. So please be there, and hopefully we will have all of you there, inshallah. In addition to all your colleagues, please feel free to share the link. It's going to be the same link we're using today. So see you there, and Eid Saeed for all of you, for all of those who are on the third day of their Eid. And over to you, Siraj.
No, I'm done. I just wanted to thank Hani and Walid, if he's there, for the technical arrangements.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Hani, and thank you, Mr. Walid, for all the effort you have put into the back end of it.
Thank you, Dr. Siraj. Thank you, Dr. Samar.
So take care. Stay safe.
See you all soon. Bye.